Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on our Small Business Month webinar to celebrate women small business owners during October. This webinar today is brought to you by the Small Business Majority and our partners at Accion, micro-lending lenders who are considered community development financial institutions. Today we're going to be talking about the Women's Small Business Month and tools to help you as women small business owners, part 2 of the webinar. My name is Geri Aglipay, and I am the Outreach Manager for Small Business Majority. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We're actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary. We have offices in 11 cities across the country. And what we do is that we are an education and advocacy organization for small business owners and self-employed small business owners as well, engaging on issues such as access to capital and credit building, retirement security, of course issues such as immigration, wage issues, and other issues as well as a policy table and to educate you on what your needs are as small business owners. Today we're going to be talking about tools to help you as women small business owners. The topics of discussion today is women's entrepreneurship in the United States. My colleague Lauren Rosenbaum from Accion will review how far women have come and the state of women entrepreneurship in the United States. I will talk about access to capital one-on-one and also the alternative forms of lending out there to help you, the small business owner, grow and scale up your business. Esther Morales, the Executive Director of the National Women's Business Council, will be talking about emerging entrepreneurial population. And finally, we'll have small business owner Linda Spradley Dunn of Odyssey Media, who will talk to you as a female and minority business owner regarding the lessons learned and best practices that she's experienced and learned along the way to put in her toolbox as a women small business owner. And then finally, we'll talk about the resources and tools available to you that can help you grow and scale up your business. At the end, we'll have a question and answer period, in which case you can type your questions in that lower left-hand corner of this webinar below, if you can see on your screen. At any point during this webinar, feel free to type in your questions in that box below, and we will answer your questions at the end. We will hold all questions and answers at the end, in which case myself and the presenters on these calls will help to answer your questions for you. And with that, let's dive right in to the webinar. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Lauren at Accion to talk about National Women's Small Business Month. Lauren?
Hi, everyone, and so happy to join you today, and we're excited to celebrate National Women's Small Business Month, and we're so pleased to be joined by some really great speakers as well. So I am with the communications team at Accion, which is a national nonprofit lender. I just wanted to start off this conversation by sharing a few facts about the contributions of women-owned businesses in the United States. So right now, women are really the drivers of entrepreneurship in our country. Women are founding businesses at 2.5 times the national rate, and this growth is largely driven by women of color. So as an example, between 1997 and 2014, the number of businesses owned by Black or African American women grew by almost 300%. And women business owners are really part of a movement in our country. They are making our economy and our communities better for everyone. So one interesting fact is that companies with gender and ethnic diversity on their leadership teams are more profitable than companies with lower diversity. And women-owned businesses are really creating positive impacts in their local communities as well. They employ nearly 8 million people, and they're more actively involved in their local communities than male-owned businesses. So 70% of women-owned businesses are actively involved in their local communities. So these are just a couple facts, a couple of the reasons why at Accion we're so fortunate to partner with business owners, with women business owners across the country. So just sharing a little bit about who we are. We are a national nonprofit business lender. Our typical first-time loan is around $10,000, but we have a pretty broad variety of loan sizes and types based on the individual business need. And we really pride ourselves on the fact that we have a holistic lending approach. We take a number of different factors into consideration beyond the traditional numbers that you might think about, like FICO score. And we really want to understand the individual potential of their business, the story behind it, the passion behind it. And we also pride ourselves on the fact that we really partner with business owners every step of the way, and that actually starts with the loan application itself. So our loan consultants are experts in their field. They're there to help you prepare the best application possible. And we also offer business resources and training like online articles, resources, webinars. We have events across the country, networking events, mentorship programs, workshops on topics like how to package your product or how to market your business. And we really offer a community of support. Our business owners are not only invested in their own success, but they're also invested in helping other business owners succeed as well. So they will often serve as presenters, as speakers at local events, at national webinars like this one. They will mentor other business owners, and often they'll even collaborate on business ventures with each other. So an example that I learned about just recently is a restaurant that started serving their food at another distillery that was another Accion client, and that collaboration started when they met at an Accion networking event. And so we really know that the approach that we take has worked. Since 1991, about 97% of the businesses we funded are still open. So if you're interested in learning more about us, I encourage you to start by visiting our website. You can enter your zip code and it will take you to the contact information of the Accion office that is closest to you. And you can also call the general inquiries number on the slide if you'd like to get the process started, or if you just have questions before you start your application. And if you're just interested in getting some resources and learning how to start or grow your business, I encourage you to check out the resources on the slide here, or check out our workshops and events, see if there's anything coming up near you. And again, as Geri mentioned, these slides will be available to you after the webinar as well. So thank you again. We're so excited to hear from the rest of our speakers. And with that, I will turn it back over to Geri.
Thanks, Lauren, for that. I'm going to go over some basic funding options for you as women business owners on how to start and grow your business. In particular, what I'm going to talk about are some alternative sources of lending for you if you're starting your business or if you're scaling up your business. Just wanted to give you a bit of quick background about the Small Business Majority. We are also, like Accion, a nonprofit organization. We're actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary. We have 11 offices across the country. We focus on advocacy and education for small business owners who have under 100 employees, but also people who are self-employed. Some of the issues that we work on are access to capital, which I'll be talking to you today about, workforce issues such as paid sick leave, health care, what the Affordable Care Act means to you, retirement security, taxes and budget, and more. What makes us unique as a nonprofit organization is we are not a membership organization. We actually are a 501c3, not a C6. And also what makes us unique is that our work is supported by extension qualitative research with small business owners and quantitative research across the country. We also have an entrepreneurship program which brings resources and education to you through our small business
smallbusinessportal.org is where you can find that. And to learn more about capital, it would be smallbusinessportal.org/capital, as you see on the screen here. Now, in terms of seeking financing for your business, we know that capital is crucial for startup, survival, and the growth for your small business. However, inadequate access to capital and credit is a top concern that faces small business owners. Since the crash and recession of 2008, small business bank lending is down. 90% of small businesses in our scientific polling has said that availability of credit is a problem. And this is something that we continue to hear time and again from our partners as well, that availability of capital and credit is a problem. Small business lending is down also because simply since 2008, big banks will not lend, in general, under $300,000 for small businesses. You can have strong credit, but the reality is a certain amount just isn't bankable for a lot of the large big banks to provide small business loans of $5,000, $500, $25,000. So what are your options? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. However, if you are a woman in a minority-owned business, you face additional barriers. So the reason for the barriers on seeking capital is that women and minority-owned businesses are typically smaller in size. They start off with less capital. There are lower approval rates for bank loans and smaller dollar amounts. Typically for women, when seeking capital at a bank, there's a 50% approval rate as opposed to male small business owners. And what we've found is that women and minority business owners are more vulnerable to predatory lending. So on this screen here, what you see is some sources of funding, traditional and alternative, with the banks and family and friends. Some people use home lines of equity, SBA loans and such. Now, this is not an exhaustive list of where to finance your small business. However, it's just some examples. One thing that I do want you to consider when you are seeking capital for your small business loan or equity is what do you need the money for? How much money do you need? This is really important. Is what's the current financial shape of your business? Is a very important question to ask yourselves as a small business owner. A lot of times what we like to say is seeking small business capital to fund and start up your business, it's a litmus test for also how well the state of your business operations are going. The best time to seek capital is when you don't need it. And again, the reason why I say it's a good litmus test on how well your operations and processes are the status of that, but also the financial shape, is because when you apply for capital, it's going to highlight where some of the weaknesses are, some of the strengths in your business processes that need to be bumped up and strengthened. Ask yourself, what collateral do you have to put up the loan, and also how quickly you need the money. One last thing is you want to find out, are you seeking debt or equity financing? And now you're probably asking, what's debt and equity financing? Well, debt financing is simply the money that you pay back, usually with interest over a set period of time. Some examples of that are bank loans and credit cards. Equity financing essentially means that you're going to give up a portion of ownership in your business in exchange for money from equity investors. Those investors become part owner of the company. So I don't know if some of you have seen that popular TV show Shark Tank on network television, but that's a great example of equity financing. And you see those business owners who are looking for capital for somebody to invest in their business and get that mentorship. But the reason that negotiation is going on is they don't want to give up any more ownership in their business than needed. So that is a perfect example of equity financing. Also, some examples of that are angel investors and venture capitalists. Now, I want to talk about, outside of the big banks, what we're going to focus on is debt financing. And some of that debt financing, the alternative sources outside of the big banks, as I said earlier, big banks simply don't lend under, $300,000. Where would you find that financing? One place is a community development financial institution. And you just heard from my colleague, Lauren from Accion, and she is with Accion, which is a CDFI, a community development financial institution. They are dedicated to responsible and affordable lending to generally underserved entrepreneurs and low-income communities. But since the advent of the recession in 2008, since larger banks simply will not lend under a certain amount, what we found is CDFIs have come in to step in to fill that void for small business financing as well. They also provide in-depth support, which includes mentoring and technical assistance. And many CDFIs offer microloan programs of loans less than $50,000. They are backed by the Department of Treasury, CDFIs, and you'll find them as nonprofit institutions. You will also find them within some community-based organizations that have CDFIs as well. Now, Lauren with Accion, that CDFI is a national organization. So that's one alternative option for lending. A second type of option are SBA loans backed by the U.S. Small Business Administration. Now, to let you know, the SBA is not a lender of these loans. They actually guarantee them to intermediary lenders such as banks, CDFIs, as we just discussed, and micro-lending institutions. Two primary program loans of the SBA are 7A loans and community development loans, 504 loans. They also have microloans for under $50,000 and an SBA Express loan program. There's also support for women business owners if they are veterans and military as well. To find an SBA-approved lender near you, simply go to this website here, sba.gov/tools/link. The one thing that we do want to alert you to, with our partners at the Small Business Administration, they also have small business development programs to support you to grow your business for free. Some of these are through SCORE. Some of them are women's business centers. There's also the Small Business Development Centers, sometimes known as their acronym SBDCs. And there's over 3,000 SBDCs across the country. So one of the second choices for us, as I've gone over with CDFIs, the second choice would be an SBA loan. Now, there are alternative online lenders that are growing. Since the crash in 2008, as I said, big banks simply aren't lending as they had before. What happened was a new breed of online lenders stepped in to also fill that gap. What they use is technology and social data to assess risk, not only and maybe sometimes not even your credit score. So for example, if some of you have a service business such as a restaurant or a bakery, what some of these online lenders are also going to do is assess your social data, go to see your Yelp reviews, your Google reviews, and assess what your risk is then. They tend to have alternative payment structures. They have generally higher interest rates than banks. But the one thing that we want to alert you to is at this point, not all online lenders are equal, and it is largely unregulated at this point. Again, online lending is largely unregulated at this point. So do proceed with caution if you are looking at an online lender for a loan. Generally, online lenders, they tend to connect small businesses with institutional and individual lenders via term loans, such as marketplace lenders. Another type of online lender is a cash flow lender, and they offer short-term loans. The way you pay them back is simply by what that name is reflected as. You pay them back through your cash flow, what that percent amount that you agreed upon, your daily. So for instance, if you agreed upon 10% daily deduction of your sales, then if you make $5,000 that day, they will deduct $500. If you make $10,000, they'll deduct $1,000. The reason why we're talking about cash flow lenders is look at the fine print. Again, they're largely unregulated. Sometimes they may deduct even if you don't. have a cash flow that day. So be aware of the fine print when you're signing. Another type of online lender is a merchant cash advance. They provide cash upfront in exchange for a portion of your future sales. They will take that future sales, a percentage of it, until the loan plus a premium is paid back. Some of these online lenders, if you don't read the fine print, you could be charged as high as 80 to 150% interest rate. Again, we do advise that small business owners proceed with caution. Last, another type of online lending is crowdfunding, very popular, and I'm sure many of you as small business owners have participated in crowdfunding, where you're helping a friend to raise money for a charity or start a business and you get a t-shirt back. Generally through crowdfunding, as a small business owner, to fund your business, you reach out to a large number of investors through an online platform for a set period of time. It's not forever and a day, in order to raise funds for your small business. Two predominant types that we tend to see small business owners use are reward crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding. And generally speaking, if you are thinking of going the crowdfunding route as an alternative source of lending to fund your business, do be aware that you need to have a strong social media presence. We're talking for your product or service on Facebook or Twitter or whatever social media it is, that you have a couple thousand to 3,000 followers is the numbers that we've heard to really make it a successful crowdfunding venture. One last type of alternative source of online lending that we do want you to be very aware of is a merchant cash advance. We recommend this be a last resort. We're not arguing for or against it, but it needs to be the last resort for you as a small business owner. Sometimes it's known as the payday loans for small businesses. Be very aware of opaque, non-transparent terms. And what you'll hear a lot and what you'll read a lot, it'll say fast cash, no credit score, no collateral needed. If you are looking at a merchant cash advance and you may have, high cash flow volume, but maybe you think that, but again, what we recommend is proper cash flow planning, and going back to the basic principles is an assessment of your financial status of your business and also what your future goals are. You don't want to get into a loan online only to find that you can't get out of it and you're not meeting your goal of buying equipment in 2 years. So be very aware of that. And we've cautioned a lot about online lending and the predatory lending that we've seen. Again, some interest rates can be as high as 80 to 150%. It is a growing problem. What happened was the small business majority, along with their partners such as Accion and groups like the Aspen Institute, came up with a small business borrower's bill of rights, which was unveiled at the U.S. Department of Treasury last summer. And essentially, it's a right for small business borrowers regarding how they could arm themselves better when looking for lending in general, but especially online. You can find this Bill of Rights at responsiblebusinesslending.org. When you go to that website, you can also find a Small Business Borrowers Bill of Rights checklist for small business owners. Things to ask such as, are there any prepayment penalties, or what's the full cost of the loan? But once again, and cannot stress this enough, ask yourself, have you fully assessed your financial situation so that you can reasonably meet any loan payment terms? And here on this screen is just an example of who the partners are within this Responsible Business Coalition, Lending Coalition, that developed the Small Business Borrowers Bill of Rights. Now, earlier I asked what the average retirement income for working households is. I got $1.5 million, $60,000 to $75,000. The actual average account balance for working age households in the U.S. for retirement is $3,000. We do have a retirement savings gap in this country. And the one thing that we want you to understand is, as you grow your business, as you fund your business and seek capital, don't forget to save for yourselves as small business owners and female small business owners, because the ones being affected most by this U.S. retirement savings gap tend to be females especially those who are single female parents. For more information, you can log into our webinars and sign up in the future, our free webinars on access to capital and retirement savings, to find out how to grow your business while saving for your future with more detailed information on plans and pathways. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Esther Morales, from the National Women's Business Council. Esther?
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I want to thank Geri from the Small Business Majority and Lauren from Accion for inviting me to participate today on this Women's Small Business Month webinar, Tools for Women Businesses. And of course, the National Women's Business Council is pleased to be invited anywhere we talk about tools for women businesses, because our website is full of them, and that's what we do every day. So I also very much look forward to hearing from Linda Spradley Dunn of Odyssey Media after this. So I hope everybody stays tuned. So I want to kick off the conversation around the National Women's Business Council's research, basically by inviting everyone to join me in wishing happy birthday to the National Women's Business Council today. This hasn't been raised yet on the call, but today is the anniversary of the House Resolution 5050 that was passed on October 25th in 1988. And recently I was in Ohio, and I had the pleasure of hearing some of the original women involved in making sure this legislation passed back then. And these stories are tremendous. So I encourage you all at some point, if you have a chance to hear some of those original folks talk about it. I especially remember Virginia Littlejohn's stories, and so I encourage you to go hear her speak about it if you have time. Anyway, this act was instrumental in eliminating state laws that required a male co-sponsor for a woman's business loan. You know, and let me tell you, as the new executive director to the council, that when I found out that I was alive and conscious and a young woman in 1988, and that these laws were still on the books, I was quite shocked. So I'm very grateful that we are lucky that within the passage of HR 5050, the Women's Business Centers program was founded, and the National Women's Business Council was born. So today, 28 years later, more women than ever before have been supported to start and maintain their own businesses. And as a result, there are now nearly 10 million women-owned businesses in the country. Let me tell you a little bit about the council. So the National Women's Business Council is a nonpartisan federal advisory council created to serve as an independent source of advice and counsel to the U.S. Small Business Administration, to Congress, and to the White House. It consists of 15 board members, including one chair. So that breaks down in the following way. We have one presidentially appointed chair, who currently is Carla Harris. We have 4 members of the council that are specifically of the president's party. We have 4 members that are required to be on the council that are specifically not of the president's party. And then we have 6 standing slots for representatives of national women's business organizations that you all may be members of, or have worked with, or gone to trainings, conferences, in some shape or form interacted with. And currently those 6 organizations include WIP, WPO, WeBank, NABO, the Association of Women Business Centers, and OSTIA. So I encourage you to go to our website at www.nwbc.gov and read the biographies of our impressive 15-member council. They're incredible. So I want to talk a little bit about the survey of women business owners that can set the stage for going a little bit deeper with the data today that I want to do. So the SBO conducts research every 5 years, in years ending with 2 and 7. And the most recent data released in 2015 was originally compiled in 2012, and then it was revised and re-released in early 2016. And the data is collected through the U.S. Census. And we see in the comparisons that we've done that women are starting more than 1,140 businesses per day, which is a rate of more than 47 per hour, which is huge. It's shocking. And these firms generate over $1.4 trillion in sales and employ over 8 million people. Yet, I do want to note that only 2% of women-owned firms have more than 10 employees, while 91% of women-owned firms have no employees other than the owner. And if we look at this, specifically with some comparisons around gender, we see that there are, these figures have already been thrown out there in these presentations, but there are nearly 10 million women-owned businesses, which is about 36% of businesses. There are nearly 15 million men-owned businesses, which is about 55% of businesses. And there are about 2.5 million equally owned businesses, which comprises about 9% of businesses overall. We need to note that women-owned businesses account for a disproportionately small percentage of receipts and number of employees. If we look at the statistics around age, we see that men outnumber women in every age group, but the gap is smallest among business owners under 25, which is interesting, and I think we want to take a closer look at that. Minority representation is strongest among the youngest age groups of women business owners, and women aged 45 to 54 own the greatest number of businesses in nearly all industries. If we look at what we're learning about businesses and the geographical distribution, so the sharpest rise in the number of businesses is happening in the South. The top states for growth include Georgia, Mississippi, Texas, Florida, and Louisiana, with 4 out of the 5 fastest growing metropolitan areas for women-owned firms also are located in the South. Additionally, there are 19 states in which post-recession growth in the number of women-owned firms is at least 10 points higher than pre-recession growth. And most of these states are concentrated in the north central or Midwest regions of the U.S. And this has been brought up earlier by Accion, but as of 2012, there are nearly 3.8 million businesses owned by women of color. And in 2002, there were fewer than 1 million minority women-owned businesses, and this is a huge increase. Between 2002 and 2012, the number of non-minority women-owned businesses grew by just 9%, while the number of minority women-owned businesses overall grew by 315%, which means that 4 in 10 firms are minority women-owned. There are now more than 383,000 female veteran-owned businesses in the U.S. This is an increase of 295% since 2002. So the council, in looking at these numbers, realized that it's great to know that the greatest increases in the numbers have been with minority women business owners. But we wanted to understand much more deeply the experience of these women business owners, because it isn't enough to, to be able to only have an economic argument. We also really want to understand how to support businesses to continue to grow and sustain and thrive. So we wanted to take a closer look specifically at Hispanic women-owned businesses and at Black women entrepreneurs. And we released in March, the National Women's Business Council put on our website actually fact sheets for a large number of minority women-owned businesses. But today I just want to talk about a few of the statistics specifically for the Latina and the Black women entrepreneurs. So if we look at Hispanic women-owned businesses, there are 1 million, about 1.5, 1.7 million Latino women-owned businesses. They generate $78.7 billion in receipts, and in 2012, 95.4% have no employees other than the owner. So these are mostly, women who are self-employed, and these firms have receipts of about $27.3 billion. The remaining 4.6% of firms employ 470,726 people in addition to the owner, and Latino women-owned firms with employees generated $51.4 billion in receipts. If we take a closer look at Black women-owned businesses, we'll see that there's about 1.5 million Black women-owned businesses in the United States. These businesses generate $42.2 billion in receipts. Of these firms, 97.5% have no employees other than the owner, and these firms have receipts of overall $20.7 billion. The remaining 2.5% of firms employ 316,977 people in addition to the owner. And these firms with employees generate $21.5 billion in receipts. If we look more closely at Black women entrepreneurs, of the non-farm and privately held Black businesses, 58.9% are women-owned. So that means, and this is a rare statistic that we find, where in a particular category, more businesses are owned by women than men. So this is an exciting statistic to look at. And despite the rise in business ownership, though, we do need to draw attention to the fact that Black women business owners continue to have average receipts of $27,753. And we really want to find out more about how come. If we look at the comparison of average receipts by race and ethnicity for women business owners, we see that for Black women business owners, 27,753 average receipts is at the lowest end of the spectrum. We see that Latinos, Hispanics are right at the second lowest at 53,524 for average receipts, and it goes up from there. So in partnership with the SBA's Office of Advocacy, the National Women's Business Council took on a qualitative research project to expand our understanding of the challenges and opportunities that are part of the experience of Black women entrepreneurs. And that is what I want to talk to you about today, most importantly. And this research was commissioned with Walker's Legacy, which is a global women in business collective. Okay. So we, in October 4th, partly in honor of National Women's Small Business Month, we released our Black Women Entrepreneurs, Past and Present Conditions of Black Women's Business Ownership report. And Walker's Legacy collected this data through 3 research events that were held in Houston, New York, and Washington, D.C. And the conversations that were had ultimately surfaced the following 3 major takeaways. And those takeaways were that Black women entrepreneurs start their own businesses for flexibility and fulfillment, that their motivations include creating generational wealth and a legacy for their children, following their passions, having more freedom and flexibility, including work-life balance, and giving back to their respective communities. Secondarily, there was a lot of synergy around the same experiences with access to capital and resources, namely that risk and fear are key barriers to accessing financial capital, that the potential for racism and discrimination is a barrier towards approaching traditional sources of capital, not having a seat at the table or at the right tables, as well as not having the social and human capital that would make businesses privy to key resources are also challenges. And lastly, mentorship and networks was a huge topic of conversation. So the women that participated in the conversations felt that a lack of quality, experienced mentorship, networks, and sponsors for Black women entrepreneurs who support Black women-owned businesses but also champion their needs was part of the ecosystem. So there was a lack of that in the ecosystem. So the report recommended the following 4 main actions. The first was that we should encourage the increase of the number of Black women angel investors, affluent individuals who provide financial capital for new business ventures. Secondarily, we want to improve and expand information and resource sharing targeting Black women business owners, including local community enterprise resource programs. It's important to further the development of mentorship programs and networking opportunities for Black women-owned businesses. And it is important to encourage entrepreneurship programs at historically Black colleges and universities with incorporation of diverse curricula into these programs. Overall, the takeaways were that this research really doesn't necessarily present quantitative data, but we think that the conversations that were documented encourage dialogue between Black women entrepreneurs and thought leaders, policymakers, and other stakeholders to help develop and identify policies and recommendations that reflect the needs of this emerging entrepreneurial population and help foster its growth. This report is one of a series of planned National Women's Business Council studies into subpopulations of female business owners, which will be released over the coming year, including, but not limited to, a deeper look at women-owned businesses that are Latinas, millennials, veterans, and those businesses that are often coined as necessity entrepreneurs. Okay, so I will stop there, but I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to some of the initial findings of our research report, and I encourage you to go to our website to look at other tools we have and to check out the report releases that I mentioned are coming up in the future. So thank you so much, and I'm going to turn this back over to Geri.
Thank you, Esther, for that really insightful summary of the report. And the numbers for minority businesswomen, especially Latinas and Black women entrepreneurs, again, do visit the National Women's Business Council website for more information on this report. After Esther gave that insightful report on minority women business owners, I want to turn it over to Linda Spradley Dunn, who is going to be talking about her experiences in starting up and growing her successful business as a female and minority women business owner. Linda?
Hello, how are you? Hello?
Great, thanks, Linda.
Good.
Yes, we've got you on the line and your slides are up.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, thank you. And I want to thank the other speakers because I think their statistics and their numbers are really spot on. I'm Linda Spradley Dunn, the CEO of Odyssey Media. I've had an incredible journey as an African-American, female, 100% minority-owned and operated company. One of the things I like to tell women is it is okay to recognize that we are treated differently. Not bad differently, not good differently, but simply differently. There are nuances that people bring to the table when they meet you as an African-American businesswoman that can only be described sometimes as another woman. So during my 20-year trek, the thing that I have realized the most is that people underestimate sometimes our business concepts, our businesses, our growth potential, and what we can offer. It's really important to make sure that we not take that personal as African American female business owners, but realize that it exists. So why do I say that? In 20 years, I've had 4 different banks. Almost without question, though I have run very high balances, incredible credit lines, I'm a multi-million-dollar company, an incredible track record, and by the way, most of my corporate clients are Fortune 100. I am inevitably put through a tougher test for credit line for business loans. I sometimes operate in what's known as red line cities, where they question my ability to grow a product or reach a certain audience. I was simply asked when I first started out, was my target audience real? My target audience is affluent and influential multicultural women. Several bankers said to me, how many of you are there? Can you imagine? But what's really important is to have a strong business case, to have confidence in what you're doing, and not to be deterred by some who may bring preconceived notions of what you, your community, or you as a businesswoman can do. So what is it that I do? Well, I organize events. I do research. I bring Fortune 100 companies to the table. I teach them how to market to us. I have a special circle of women. And most importantly, I provide a safe and trusted network and community area for women to network in, to learn, and to share. Next. So as a businesswoman, I think it's really important to understand that less than 1.5% of equity investments went to African American females. We sometimes get lumped in with all women, but as a subset, we rarely get angel investors, first round investments, and clearly it's very difficult to get expansion revenue. Next slide. So some of the things that I've learned over my 20 years is how important it is for African American females to make sure that when they are trying to access capital, that they understand what they're going to look at. Is it different for us? A little bit. Lots of women have started, stopped, declared bankruptcy, don't have perfect credit. But for African American women, there's sometimes a bit of a tougher standard. It's really important to build your own reserve. I learned the hard way that it was important for me to have corporate sponsors with money on reserve who would speak on my behalf. What a difference it made when I applied for certain product expansions, certain business loans, to have some of my top clients be my reference at the bank. It immediately put me in another stratosphere. The second thing that's really important is not to believe the hype that there aren't people in our community that can be angel investors. Point in case, Ira Hall, the first African-American treasurer for IBM, invested in lots of dot-coms and companies like my own when he realized that as an angel investor, we weren't getting the capital. You simply need to ask. Third, you can put together, when accessing capital as an African-American business owner, your own group by doing it in microloans. One year I needed to raise $1 million. So my goal was to ask 1,000 people for $5,000 or 300 people for $1,000. I realized early on the number of people in our community who might not be able to contribute $100,000 or $250 or $500, but who were so willing to loan me $5,000, $10, or $15. By the way, this was before crowdfunding. This was before a lot of the new internet vehicles that we have. But that old-fashioned, are there 100 people in my network and other networks that can loan me $5,000? You would be totally surprised on how many people in our communities exist for that. The next slide talks about the pitch. Really important to present yourself as successful. No matter what the books tell you, no matter what the webinars tell you, sometimes being overly honest is not good. People want to see a winner. I always suggest that you take 3 or 4 factual, truthful, really good points about yourself and tell your story. Nothing is more important than somebody looking you into your eyes and understanding that you are leading, that you have passion about what you do, and that this is your story. On the next slide, what we talk about is the 6 C's, the type of things that people are looking for. They're looking for character. Be very careful about Facebook posts, Instagram, and Twitter on the personal side. Social media has brought into play an entire new profile. You can better believe that before somebody is going to give you access to capital, they're going to vet you on the social media highway. Make sure that your image and your profile is clean. Make sure that you really have the capacity on what you're presenting. We all dream, but walking into a presentation and saying that you have 9 products but 2 people to present those products, execute them, and implement them is probably not a good strategy. Make sure that you have some own skin in the game. No matter how small of an amount of capital you have, you must bring something to the table. Make sure that you can collateralize. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have money in the bank to collateralize or assets. It may mean that in your network, 3 people who've made it and who have multi-million-dollar businesses are there to back you and maybe to co-sign. Make sure the conditions are right, that you have looked at entrance to market, that you don't present something that through disruption can be knocked out in a matter of 5 days. Do your homework. Don't walk in and present a product that technology can make null and void in 30 days. The number one thing you must look at is cash flow. I am so guilty throughout my businesses of dreaming up new product lines, jumping out on new ventures, but not having the cash flow to follow. I owned a magazine 8 years ago, and I thought people paid magazine invoices in 30 or 45 days. Wrong. Most advertising is paid in 90 to 120 days. I was not prepared for magazine invoices and the effect it would have on my cash flow. On the next slide, what we talk about is social media. I can't say enough. There are lots of people saying, grow your business through social media, grow your business through social media. That's important, but control your business through social media. Control your image. Decide whether you want a live Twitter feed when any Jane Schmo saying anything she wants doing a major presentation, or decide whether you want a closed network. Decide if your e-blasts are being deleted or are they getting through the noise level. And most importantly, decide how you can reach your clientele through a digital platform that still safeguards your brand. And so what I'd like to do is make sure that I thank Geri, who's been phenomenal, the other speakers I learned from you today, but to let the African-American women, the Latina women, Asian women, and yes, my white sisters on the phone know it is okay to acknowledge the special condition that you may be in and market to that. Have a great afternoon, ladies. Thanks, Geri.
Thank you, Linda. And with that, I'm going to go into a question and answer period right now. As you type your questions in the lower left-hand corner of the chat box. Again, type your questions in the lower left-hand corner of the chat box over what you've heard today from our presenters. And with that, I do have a question for Linda and Esther. Is there a national organization for Black women entrepreneurs?
Yes, there's several. There's NMSDC, the National Minority Supplier Diversity. They've been around for a gazillion years. I got my first loan through them. They also have companies that will finance your invoices And most important, they have a national conference that will knock you off your feet, where almost every Fortune 500 company comes to meet you. And then there's several others, but I highly recommend NMSDC, the National Black MBA, another great conference, and of course my conference, Odyssey Media.
Great. And we have another question here. Is there a need to drive better marketing for Black women business owners?
Do you want me or someone else to answer that?
If you could answer that, and Esther, you can chime in afterwards. Feel free. Linda?
No problem. So could you repeat that question very quickly?
The question is there a need to drive better marketing for Black women business owners?
Absolutely. And believe it or
not, what are the options available?
Right. So the biggest option is to market back to our community. That's one really easy one that we all forget. And the two is to drive marketing to sister organizations, and I mean being inclusive. So I have found that some of my best advocates are white women who really understand, who've been through it, and want to help. We tend not to rely on the sisterhood, and that is the best place to drive marketing efforts for Black women, both in corporate America and as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and this is Esther.
Great.
And Geri, this is Esther, and I just wanted. No, that's okay. I just wanted to add that that there is data that shows that women, if given the choice, will make a choice to support another woman's business, will buy a women-made or produced product. And so I do think that we forget about this when we market a lot of our products, and we forget to say, hey, I'm a woman-owned business, maybe because, and that would be an interesting thing for us to research, why we don't do it more often. But definitely, women want to support other women.
Fantastic. We have time for one final question. Lauren, if you could answer, how important is personal credit as opposed to business credit in starting your business and seeking capital, or even growing your business from a current business owner's perspective?
Yeah, and I'll start with the caveat that our loan consultants are going to be much more knowledgeable in this area. But one of the reasons, one of the distinctions that Geri talked about earlier is the difference between traditional and non-traditional sources of credit. So typically, with the more traditional credit, like bank loans, they're going to look more at your business credit. They're going to expect that you have a longer track record, and that's why they generally don't fund businesses in their first, startup businesses or businesses in their first years of operation. So that's why if you are looking at some of the non-traditional sources of finance, like community development financial institutions or the other types of institutions that Geri talked about, your personal credit is going to be more important than with other types of finance. But again, there's going to be a lot of different factors that lenders are taking into account, and it really depends on the individual financial institution what factors that they look at. Again, many of the entrepreneurs that we support might have, limited credit or damaged credit, and that is why they're coming to us, because they might not qualify for a traditional loan, but they are otherwise, have a great business plan and are otherwise have great potential to grow their business. So, again, if you have specific questions about your credit, I would encourage you to call a general inquiries line or, start your own application, and that'll get the process going to get that one-on-one support for your individual business.
Great. And I wanted to add to that for Lauren, the CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, such as Accion, another national one. There are others out there as well. Their mission is to help you, the small business owners, become more bankable. If your credit maybe doesn't look too great on paper, they will work with you to strengthen your credit and make sure you get the funding you need that's appropriate for your capacity while building up that personal credit and strengthening your business. One last question, Esther. Can you talk about, from the National Women's Business Council, about women owners who have disabilities, and have there been any studies regarding that from the National Women's Business Council for those who are women disabled business owners who want to start their own business?
Geri, that's a great question, and I want to get back to everybody with this information. I don't unfortunately have it at the top of my fingertips right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will send that to individuals after this call following this, the information regarding disabled women business owners. Again, we want to stress, going back to the credit question, your personal credit, when you'll hear and you'll talk to lenders and bankers, that essentially is the same as your business credit. And as Lauren said, there are the larger banks that will focus more on that business credit. But even if you're seeking a loan for $500,000 or $750,000, they're still going to look at your personal credit and the collateral that you have. So, and with that, I know that we are coming to a close here. We will make these slides available to you following this presentation in a handout. I will be sending an email for you to complete a survey to help us improve this webinar. And once you complete that survey, we will send you the handout. Any questions that you have, please feel free to contact myself, or Lauren, or Linda on this contact information on the slides here. And thank you all very much for your time. We know you're very busy business owners, taking time out of your day to participate on this webinar. Again, thank you very much for your time. I'd like to thank Lauren and Linda and Esther for participating in this webinar and offering us your expertise.
Thank you, Geri. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will be closing the webinar. Any questions, please feel free to email us on the call. Thank you all, and have a good afternoon and a good morning.
Thank you.